USC recognizes survivors of the Holocaust with the University Gold Medallion. Find out how rare this honor is.
Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani speaks out for the first time about his interpreter's gambling scandal.
I'm at Galen Center as the Trojans women's basketball team prepares to take on the Kansas Jayhawks.
Annenberg TV News is next.
Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And I am increasingly alarmed that we may be condemned to repeat history, to once again have to fight for the very right to be Jewish.
That was Steven Spielberg, one of the founders of USC's Shoah Foundation, at a ceremony to present the esteemed University Medallion. Hi, I'm Vincent Amonte.
And I'm Sophie Sullivan. President Carol Full honored Holocaust survivors today with the award at Town and Gown.
Because today we're recognizing survivors, the witnesses of the Holocaust, who have entrusted their personal testimonies to the USC Shoah Foundation, and we're recognizing them with USC's highest honor, the University Medallion.
The most about speaking is to let the people, especially the young students, high school, middle school, high school students, to let them know what happened about the Holocaust. Because they tell me that reading books is not the same as to speak to a real survivor.
And I think all the speakers were so well informed and so motivating and so educational. And that's what it's about. It's about education so that people understand and so that people are tolerant and people just get along. Because what's going on and the way that this country's leaning is not in a good direction, and it doesn't help anybody.
Shoah Foundation architect Steven Spielberg spoke at the event. He founded the nonprofit in 1994, 1 year after he directed the Academy Award-winning Film of the Year, Schindler's List.
In a letter to the Daily Trojan, USC Provost Andrew Guzman confirmed the Academic Achievement Award will not be revoked after all. The scholarship allows students to take up to 21 units. The university said, quote, "Feedback from the community was an important factor in keeping the award," after students protested its early decision on social media. Eligibility criteria will remain the same, and presidential and trustee scholars will continue to be eligible for exceptional funding. Tomorrow, the Supreme Court will hear a case that could limit access to abortion pills across the country. The case will be heard by the High Court and will determine whether to overturn the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's approval of abortion pills. The pill in question, mifepristone, is the most commonly used abortion alternative, with almost 6 million women having used it since 2000. Reproductive rights have diminished in recent years. In June of 2022, the Supreme Court repealed the landmark case of Roe v. Wade, turning the decision back to the states. Last April, a federal judge halted a national ban on mifepristone, and in August, a federal appeals court shortened the gestational period to 7 weeks. Tomorrow will be another important test of a woman's right to end a pregnancy.
I think it's very concerning as a woman to know that your government is questioning, as government as a whole is questioning your autonomy. Unsafe, I would say, is another word that comes to mind.
It's really frustrating and disgusting when people, a lot of men, and in the Supreme Court and all these white men making these decisions for us, it's really frustrating to not get a lot of recognition in that area. Yeah, it's just...
Oral arguments will begin tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
Today, Boeing announced that CEO Dave Calhoun will step down at the end of this year after several aircraft malfunctions. The shift in management follows several incidents, including the mid-air blowout of a Boeing 737 door panel in January. As a result, airline executives have expressed frustration with Boeing because the safety issues are a concern for frequent flyers.
20 years ago, if you were sitting here and asking me this question, I said, look at Boeing. These are the gold standard for human factors. But look what happened in the case of MCAS and 737 MAX. This is what happens when an engineering company is taken over by business people. And the merger between Boeing and McDonnell Douglas, as beautifully documented in this book, flying blind. This book documents the demise of the Boeing.
On January 5th, the door flew off a plane operated by Alaska Airlines. On January 29th, a Delta plane lost a tire before takeoff, and a United Airlines flight also lost a wheel on March 7th. Most recently, a LATAM Airlines craft dropped mid-flight, injuring 50 passengers. All of these incidents occurred on Boeing planes. Boeing's chairman of the board and the CEO of the commercial airplane unit will also leave Boeing by the end of the year. LA Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani finally addressed the investigation surrounding his interpreter's alleged gambling addiction. Ohtani's longtime interpreter.
And I have never went through a bookmaker to bet on sports. In conclusion, Ipe has been stealing money from my account and has told lies.
Ohtani signed with the Dodgers in December for $700 million, the most expensive contract in sports history. His talent has united baseball fans across the world.
Having Shohei answer a bunch of hypotheticals is just not productive as of right now.
Both the MLB and the IRS began a formal investigation into the situation on Friday. The Dodgers opened their season at home this Thursday.
Now we go to Thomas Johnson, who is live at the Galen Center where USC's women's basketball team is playing Kansas. Thomas, how is it looking over there?
Thanks, Vincent. USC women's basketball is preparing to take on the Kansas Jayhawks at Galen Center in the NCAA tournament. The gates aren't open yet, but the atmosphere is electric as the Trojans prepare for their 7 p.m. tip-off. This is the furthest the team has made it in March Madness since 2006, beating their first-round opponent this past weekend. USC earned a top spot in its region, giving the team an opportunity to host an NCAA tournament game at Galen Center for the first time in the stadium's history. Over 8,000 fans came to Galen Center to watch USC's 87-55 win over Texas A&M Corpus Christi, helping the team make it into the round of 32. If the Trojans beat the Jayhawks tonight, they will advance to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1994. I will be back on later in the show to talk to you about the excitement as Galen Center starts to fill up. History could be made back to you guys in the studio.
Last night kicked off eclipse season. Find out how a lunar eclipse affects you based off your astrological sign.
USC's acceptance rate has reached an all-time low. We'll show you how selective USC has become over the last decade.
And we're highlighting the women of ROTC with a closer look into how these students balance academics and training. As USC welcomes in a new batch of students for the class of 2028, we must also say our farewells to the class of 2024. Seniors say they'll miss SC but are ready to start a new chapter.
Sometimes I walk campus and I have to pinch myself because I'm actually here getting taught by these awesome professors.
Pop the USC bubble, go to the San Gabriel Valley for Asian food.
In the past 3 years, I feel like has fulfilled that dream of like a really beautiful college experience. And
seniors are lining up to purchase and customize their sashes for graduation. We spoke with several to see how the process is going.
I am ordering my sash today. Okay. Really excited about it. Yeah.
So I just walked into the bookstore asking, hey, what do I have no idea what I'm doing in regards to my cap and gown. It's pretty late in the game. It's end of March. Most people get this done in February, but I just had no idea what the process was.
Yeah.
Apparently it's online.
Yeah, thank you. So I actually just purchased my sash at the bookstore. It's right here in my backpack, and I will be taking it somewhere here in LA to get it, to add the other stuff. Yeah.
Well, seniors, the end is coming near. Commencement will take place on Friday, May 10th.
The university sent out admission decisions to the class of 2028 last week on Friday. The new Trojans have begun to celebrate and share reactions to their acceptance letters online. It's getting harder and harder to get into USC. Acceptance rates have fallen from 20% in 2015 to 16% in 2020 to this year, where the percent of applicants admitted dropped to an all-time low of 9.2%. We look forward to welcoming the new freshmen to our campus this fall. They'll be able to move into the residence halls on August 21st.
Way back in the day, through residential halls weren't the norm. Welcome to our new segment called Beyond the Headline, where we dive into the history behind one of our main stories. This week, we will look into some of USC's history, admission statistics, and how its demographics have changed over the past few years. In 1880, only 53 students and 10 faculty members made up the Trojan family. Today, nearly 5,000 faculty members and 21,000 undergraduates walk the campus. And as our university continues to grow, our diversity does as well. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, from 2019 to 2022, Hispanic and Latino students saw a 15% increase in undergraduate enrollment. At the same time, international students saw a 5% increase and black students saw a 40% increase.
For the last week of Women's History Month, we look at USC's Air Force ROTC program. As Tracy Mejia reports, women are bringing some historic changes to this Reserve Officers Training Corps.
The USC Air Force ROTC looks a lot like California.
So our makeup, our demographic is like almost 52 to 48 male to female, right? Which is very, very close and very unique to our location. Another reflection of, Southern California.
It's a narrow margin, that we're more women than men, but I think it's really nice, especially when I came in as a freshman. I could clearly see women in positions of leadership and followership that I wanted to emulate.
It's unique for a military branch to have more women in the program with big leadership roles.
I was really lucky to come into the program and see women at every stage that I wanted to be like.
And that's not the only thing that makes this program special.
The Air Force ROTC has been here at USC since 1984, and now the newest branch of the military has a program here on campus. USC is one of the 14 schools in the country to partner up with the United States Space Force.
So Space Force, still new, right? And so we are still, Big Space Force is kind of still telling us what that curriculum is going to look like.
The program is a partner detachment with I-5 Space, which is a national student organization that operates under the U.S. Space Force's Space Training and Readiness Command.
Essentially, the Space Force is, there's engineers, intel, space operations, and they're all just focused on satellites and space.
Cadet L. Baker has the opportunity to learn skills through the USC's program to join the Space Force after she graduates.
So the 5 years that I'm on scholarship, I pay back on active duty.
As of now, 5 USC cadets have gone to the Space Force and 3 more are expected to join over the next 2 years. For Annenberg Media, I'm Tracy Mejia.
Well, speaking of Space Forces, we had a special Space Force last night. Avi, tell us about this lunar eclipse that happened.
That's right, Sophie. Last night, an anticipated lunar eclipse appeared in our skies. The Earth cast its shadow onto the full moon as it was almost perfectly aligned with the Earth and the Sun. The peak eclipse occurred at about 3 a.m. last night, and the moon was slightly darker. Lunar viewers were underwhelmed by the insignificant visual change. Many students were unaware of the eclipse, and the few who weren't waking up for it.
Unfortunately, last night I was super busy. I was aware that it was happening, but there's a lot of stuff that came up last night, so I couldn't watch it.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to because it happened so early in the morning and I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming up, but it was just too early, so I fell asleep. But I know a friend who did stay up to watch it, but they said they didn't see anything. So.
In other news, today has been another beautiful day here in the city. Let's take a look at today's current conditions. It's remained mostly cloudy today, keeping in that low 60s, high 50s range. We've been experiencing pretty solid weather recently, and I hope we're consistently seeing this type of weather as the week continues. Let's take a look at our 5-day forecast. Today we can see that this week looks to start off great with some high 60s. We are going to see that the weather cools out a bit as the week goes on and end with some showers on Saturday. Despite this, we have clearly entered a SoCal spring. Will, is there anything that we can look forward to in sports as that month wraps up?
Welcome back to ATVN Sports. I'm Will Simons.
And I'm Nolan Ezett. It's March, and you know what that means, madness. USC women's basketball is seeded number 1. The Trojans beat 16-seeded Texas A&M Corpus Christi on Saturday at Galen Center. Mackenzie Forbes was key to the victory with 23 points on 9 of 14 shooting. She was helping USC in every which way as she added 4 assists and 3 steals. Now, the rest of the team matched her energy, shooting over 50% from the field and 38% from 3.
But Saturday's biggest highlights came once the game was out of reach. In her 5th season at USC, graduate guard India Otto checked in during the final minutes. She drove for a layup, then hit a 3 to earn a massive roar from the Galen Center crowd. Her bench clearly loved it too. Here's what Juju Watkins had to say postgame.
I was more excited for Otto than those are the best points I've seen all season. So I was more excited for her than the win. Well, no, I'm not gonna say that. that's far, but she deserves it, bro.
Just before, 8-seed Kansas came back to beat 9-seed Michigan in overtime and advanced to tonight's matchup with the top-seeded Trojans. Speaking of which, Thomas Johnson is still over at Galen. Thomas, who are you excited to watch tonight?
Thanks, Will. I am so excited to see Juju Watkins here tonight. AP All-American team. It's going to be an exciting showing from the freshman, but I'll cede it to you. You're the sports guy today. Who are you excited to see?
I'm just excited to see what the crowd's like. I think we're going to see some really cool people showing up to watch this team as we have all season. So I'm curious to see just what the environment is like as a whole. Thomas, you're over there right now. What are the vibes like? What do you think the environment's going to look like tonight?
Well, Will, the gates just opened a couple minutes ago. A bunch of cardinal and gold heading through those doors, but a couple sprinklings of that rock chalk Jayhawk blue. But it's rearing up to be a big USC crowd. Number 1 seed versus number 8 seed should be an exciting matchup. But back to you guys in the studio.
To preview tonight's game, let's take a look at a key matchup in the post.
On the Trojan side, Rhea Marshall averages a double-double. She brings efficient shooting, physicality on the boards, and defensive intensity.
On the other side, Marshall will have her hands full with the Jayhawks' 6'6" Tayana Jackson, who also basically averages a double-double as well down low. So Nolan, what do you think about the Trojans' chances tonight against the Jayhawks?
I mean, look, the Jayhawks are definitely not the better team in this case, but if there's anything that I've learned about watching this Trojan team, they can beat anyone in the nation. They can also lose to anyone in the country, so I don't think the Jayhawks will shock them, but they certainly got a chance. Let's say they don't shock them and the Trojans move on. How is the rest of the bracket looking like?
It's looking pretty good. I'm going to talk about it in a minute, but Ohio State lost to Duke. Baylor took down Virginia Tech. Obviously, that wasn't too much of an upset given Elizabeth Kitley's injury. But UConn did just beat Syracuse, which is a big win for the Huskies in the bracket, who are definitely the Trojans' biggest challenger remaining. But the bracket's shaping up pretty well for USC, so it's hard not to be optimistic about this team's chances going forward.
Definitely.
And there's plenty more action around the country this past weekend for the first 2 rounds of March Madness. Starting on the women's side, we've seen several big comebacks already. As already mentioned, Reagan Richardson led 7-seed Duke in a charge from a 16-point deficit to take down 2-seed Ohio State in Columbus. And the final game of the weekend was perhaps the best one, as Stanford and Iowa State needed overtime to settle another 2-7 thriller. Emily Ryan had 36 for the Cyclones, but Kiki Eroffen responded with 41 to lift the Cardinal.
Look, it's fun having this USC women's basketball team in the tournament, but beyond the Trojans, the landscape of the men's tournament has been way spicier. 11-seeded Oregon nearly beat 3-seed Creighton until the Ducks sent it to double OT. Now, 14-seed Oakland took down 3-seed Kentucky in a nail-biter, and Jack Golke was electric from downtown. Then we watched the Battle of the Cinderellas, an overtime matchup with Oakland and 11-seed NC State. So which tournament to you has been more exciting to watch, this men's tournament or the women's side of things?
I'm going to go with the women's. I don't know if you watched that Stanford-Iowa State game last night. That game was awesome. Overtime, those teams were trading haymakers back and forth literally the whole overtime period, even in the fourth quarter and earlier than that. That game was awesome. I think that was the best game of the tournament on either side, so I'm going with the women's side.
It was really fun, but it was all chalk. I mean, you look at that first round, there was one upset in the entirety of the women's bracket. The men's bracket, the first round, there were 7, and that's if you're excluding the 10-7 and the 9-8 upsets. I'm taking this men's team. I mean, you look at Oakland, that was such a fun time watching Jack Golke go off, but it's safe to say both were a really fun time to watch for me.
Yeah, the only thing with the men's tournament is that there haven't really been a ton of upsets either. I mean, there's one 11 seed in the Sweet 16, but other than that, it's all basically top 5 seeds, so it's not really a ton of shockers there on the other side, but I mean, it's March. Nobody's going to complain, are they, really?
No one's going to complain. It's the best tournament in all of sports. But USC football's 2025 recruiting class landed some really big names. 2 are 5-star recruits and 2 more are 4-stars. Now, all 5 guys in this class so far, shockingly, are actually from the South. With a fresh new defensive coaching staff, USC brought in a lot of standout talent on the defensive side of the field. Now, if he signs, Justice Terry would become the first 5-star defensive lineman not from California to sign with the Trojans since 2013.
That's all we have time for tonight in sports. Now, Nolan, let's get out of here quick and get our butts over to Galen for the game. But first, I got to toss it over to Sophie.
This week's Trojan Spotlight will blast you off into space, but Issa Johnson will take you there first.
Kaylee Ray knew she was destined to reach the stars after watching the movie Hidden Figures in high school. USC's Rocket Propulsion Lab has given her access to circuit boards, learning code, running simulations, and much more.
The USC RPL, or Rocket Propulsion Lab, is a design team that we have here where we design, manufacture, test, and then fly rockets. We have these things called build hours from typically 6 to 9 every day. That's where a lot of freshmen get started. Build hours just enable you to work on small projects, like lend your hand, no experience needed.
RPL members operate like a company with people in a variety of positions, like avionics, recovery, composites, and infrastructure. Members go on to work at companies like SpaceX, NASA, and Relativity. Relativity is where Kaylee will be interning this summer.
Our last space shot vehicle, which is a flight vehicle that just goes to space, or aims to go to space, that happened in 2019. So that was the first time that we broke the Kármán line, which basically distinguishes between like Earth and space.
Kaylee works on composites, everything on the outside of the rocket. The next launch is scheduled for the end of April in Nevada. She will join her team and RPL alumni as they celebrate almost 20 years as a club. This launch will surely be out of this world.
Well, I don't know about you, Sophie, but that story made me really want to shoot for the stars, if you get my drift there. Well, thank you for watching Annenberg TV News. From everyone here at Annenberg Media, I'm Vince DeMonte.
And I'm Sophie Sullivan. For more coverage, watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Annenberg Media. Thank you and good night.